it's so different than in the European context because you know, we have a very different relationship again to religion and politics and to public life. We have a pledge of allegiance. You know, we have a spiritual relationship to our nation and to politics. There are references to God on our coins. Our political leaders say "God bless America," which you would never find a European leader saying whatsoever. And so, because religion is such an integral part of our public sphere, you know, in the public sphere are debates about various kinds of policies and issues and concerns of the American citizenry. You find that reflected increasingly in the comments of the political candidates in the leadership, in what I would say probably that the rise of the Christian right, of the religious right, which predates Bush. I mean, it started really under Reagan with the moral majority, has brought a lot of these issues to the fore, in which many politicians have now feel compelled, Democrats, right? It never was perhaps an issue with Republicans because the Christian right, there was more of an affinity, obviously, with the Republican Party than with the Democratic Party, because of the conservative social issues that they represented. But now, suddenly, as you say, it's Democratic candidates feel obligated to talk about their own religion, where for many people it was also a private issue. It really wasn't a very public issue. It's ironic that if you look at John Kerry as opposed to John F. Kennedy in 1960, religion was an issue in that during the presidential election. And because there was a feeling that Kennedy, as a Catholic, would bow to the wishes of the Pope and the Vatican rather than keeping the interests of the United States in hand. And so he publicly stated that yes, he was Catholic, but that his Catholic faith would have very little to do when he actually made policy decisions. So he affirmed his religious affiliation, but said, religion will have nothing to do with my sort of decision making. And then we come back 35 years later, and suddenly things seem to have sort of been flipped, because John Kerry suddenly, during the election campaign, there were charges that he wasn't Catholic enough. So Kennedy had to essentially say he wasn't really Catholic when it came to policy issues. And John Kerry was considered to be not Catholic enough on some of these issues by a lot of the conservative Catholics. And so you see the sort of this fluidity in the relationship between religion and politics in the political sphere, and that may not necessarily go away. I mean, it's an open question, I think, the future of the Christian right. I mean, many Europeans feel that the Christian right rules American politics, that it runs American policies, but of course that's not really accurate. But it seems at this point in time that there probably will be a Democratic president, and the question is where does this sort of close affinity between sort of the Christian right and the religious communities, which was so highly developed under the Bush administration, where does that go as a political force in our country? And where does this sort of reawakening of religion, and if Democratic candidates now feel the need to, and feel perhaps hopefully more comfortable talking about their religious beliefs, will this be something that you see more and more also in the Democratic Party? Or will we go back to sort of less influence of religiosity and in these issues? But Americans there isn't a real consensus on some of these issues where religion and politics connect, on abortion, on same-sex marriage, on stem cell research, or any number of things. I mean, there isn't a real consensus in the country about it. And so, Americans overly religious? Maybe not.